Friends, in the previous two lectures, we understood the meaning of growth and development. Let us now proceed to check the importance of development economics and characteristics which indicate lower or higher levels of economic development. The objectives of this session can be stated as understanding the meaning of less developed and more developed countries and get basic insights about development economics as a branch of study. Let us identify here the geopolitical blocks created after World War II, which are termed as the two worlds with contrary views on governance, politics and society. And these two major influences created the debate on development, and finally, countries of the world were identified into four worlds as: first, the block of democratic industrial countries within the American influence sphere called the First World. Second, the eastern bloc of the communist socialist states called the Second World. The remaining 3/4 of the world's population not aligned with either bloc were regarded as a Third World. These were mainly countries with a colonial past. The term Fourth World, coined in 1974 by George Manuel, refers to widely unknown nations or cultural entities of indigenous peoples living within or across national state boundaries. The Third World countries actually drew the debate of development. The origin of the terminology the Third World is unclear. In 1952, Alfred Sauvy, a French demographer, wrote an article in a French magazine which ended by comparing the Third World with the Third Estate. Other sources claim that de Gaulle coined the term Third World. Maybe de Gaulle only has quoted Sauvy. Let us now look at the definitions of the four worlds. The term First World refers to the developed capitalist industrial countries, roughly a block of countries aligned with the United States after World War II, with more or less common political and economic interests, identified as North America, Western Europe, Japan and Australia. Second World refers to the former communist socialist industrial states, formerly the Eastern Bloc, the territory and the sphere of influence of the USSR, which today includes Russia, Eastern Europe and some of the Turk states, for example, Kazakhstan as well as China. The Third World countries are all the other countries described as the developing countries of Africa, Asia and Latin America. Countries in the Third World group can be countries with different economic systems, can be from different regions of the world and also can be rich countries. For example, Venezuela, which is a capitalist country, North Korea, well known as a communist country, Saudi Arabia, which is rich, and Mali, which belongs to the list of poor countries. What makes a nation Third World? Despite ever evolving definitions, the concept of the Third World includes countries that suffer from high infant mortality, low economic development, high levels of poverty, low utilization of natural resources and heavy dependence on industrialized nations. These are the developing and technologically less advanced nations of Asia, Africa and Latin America. Third World nations tend to have economies dependent on the developed countries and are generally characterized as poor, with unstable governments and having high rates of population growth, illiteracy and disease. In earlier times, these were countries with many poor, few elites and a very small middle class. However, now these countries are identified as countries with an emerging middle class, impoverished millions in a big lower economic class and a small elite upper class. Where the upper class controls the country's wealth and resources, most third world nations also have a very large foreign debt. These countries were termed as the newly industrializing nations by the 70s, and by the 90s some of these countries came to be known as emerging economies. The term fourth world came into use in 1974 with the publication of George Manuel's The Fourth World, an Indian Reality. The term refers to nations, cultural entities, ethnic groups of indigenous peoples living within or across state boundaries. Hence, we can say that development economics in a way gained importance after the Second World War, when economists started studying the differences in growth and development issues of the four different worlds. Until 1979, there were erroneous views pertaining to whether development economics is a separate branch of economics or not, as it drew its conclusions heavily from macroeconomics. However, when a Nobel Prize was awarded to Arthur Lewis of Princeton University and Theodore Schultz of University of Chicago in 1979, development economics got a confirmed place as a separate field in the discipline of economics. The World Development Report classifies countries as low income countries, lower middle income countries, upper middle income countries and upper income countries. According to the World Bank Atlas method, for the current 2017 fiscal year, low income economies are defined as those with an annual per capita gross national income of $1025 or less than that in the year 2015. Lower middle income economies are those with a gross national income per capita between $1026 and $4035. Upper middle income economies are those with a gross national income per capita between $4036 and $12475, and the high income economies are those with a gross national income per capita of $12,476, $12,476 or more. Let us now understand the scope of development economics. According to Todaro, development economics extends beyond the traditional economic theory. The traditional economic theory is that which is taught in the classical and the neoclassical thought in the British and the American literature. Development economics comprises of studies pertaining to society behavior and psychology, political strategies, state policies, institutional mechanisms, structural transformation, cultural implications, international relations, regional groupings, international institutions, law and treaties, diplomacy, etc. Thus, it studies multiple areas. We may also check here the nature of development economics as a branch of study. Development economics is dynamic, ever evolving, inclusive, scientific, suggestive and prescriptive, normative and value based. Development economics is dynamic as development is not a static concept. It involves increasing welfare and bettering the lives of some sections without making the other sections worse off. The idea of development changes with time, place and circumstances. Besides, development is a function of multiple changes which must occur simultaneously. Development economics is ever evolving. the concept of development and the theories of development economics have evolved continuously. Principles which hold true during one time period may not hold true at another time period. For example, expanding urban areas was necessary for developing countries to shift the surplus labor from agriculture to industries, to create job opportunities, to expand economic interaction, to promote scientific way of living, to promote modern education, and so on. Thus, urbanization was a method of increasing development. However, in these countries, as urban areas started getting congested and congestion started hindering further growth, development economics promoted the idea of providing urban facilities in rural areas to prevent further migration from rural to urban areas. Development economics is inclusive in the sense that it touches upon development issues pertaining to all areas of social, economic and political life. Development economics is scientific as it provides concrete theories and models of growth as well as of development, and uses techniques of statistics and mathematics to arrive at conclusions. Development economics makes suggestions and gives prescriptions about how countries must grow. Development economics is normative in the sense that it provides norms of welfare. It tries to discuss whether certain type of growth may be good or bad for an economy. It makes value judgments regarding pollution, migration, poverty and so on. Now, let us look at some human development indicators for India. The table here shows life expectancy at birth in years. The life expectancy at birth in India has significantly increased from 1951. This table shows the increase in life expectancy for both females and males as well as the total life expectancy from the year 2001 to the year 2013. The infant mortality rate shown in the table here for both males and females has considerably declined between 2005 and 2013. Look at the table for birth rates presented here. Do you see a considerable fall in the birth rates between 2005 and 2013? Similarly, look at the table for death rates given here. According to you, is this a considerable decline in the death rates between 2005 and 13? Let us also check the table for fertility rates in India between 2005 and 2013. Fertility rates are responsible for high birth rates in the country. The provisional gross enrollment ratio for classes 1st to 8th for the year 2014-15 is given in percentage here. The gross enrollment ratio for girls and boys is considerably high. 99.2% girls were enrolled in primary school and 94.8% boys were enrolled in the primary school. Does a high enrollment ratio mean good education? Can we find out the dropout rates in schooling in India? Let us also look at the literacy rates for Indian economy. In the year 1961, the literacy rate was just 28.3%, which increased to 73% in the year 2011 according to the census statistics. Is this a considerable increase in the literacy rates? From which census year have the literacy rates improved significantly according to you? Now, look at the child gender ratio. The child gender ratio or the child sex ratio is the number of girls per 1000 boys in the country. We present here the child gender ratio for 0 to 6 years of age. In the year 2001, the child sex ratio was 927 girls per 1000 boys, which declined in 2011. In 2011, there were only 918 girls per 1000 boys. What does this gender ratio reveal? Is Indian economy on the path of development? Now look at the households with access to safe drinking water. In the year 2011, a total of 85.5% households had access to safe drinking water, which means that another 14.5% of the population still has to be supplied safe drinking water. If we consider the percentage of population without safe drinking water, is it significant according to you? Do you have any suggestions to provide safe drinking water to all? We may now ask, what is the subject matter of development economics? Development economics studies differences in the growth rates of various economic parameters between countries of the world, like national income, trade, capital formation, infrastructural provisions, employment generation, investment, trade, etc. Differences in socio-economic parameters like size of population and demographic profile, poverty, inequalities of income and assets, etc. between countries. It also studies cultural differences and the scope of various economic policies on the various segments of the population, and it also studies the theories of growth given by experts. It further studies the models of development, economic planning, studies human welfare, and it also studies role of the state, policies, international organizations, regional groupings, role of social leaders in creating awareness and in influencing attitudes, distribution of goods, transforming institutions and shaping ideologies. Though economics is a science of growth and development, some economists who made special contributions in understanding growth and development are Rosenstein-Rodan, Hirschman, Gunnar Myrdal, Fleming, Ragnar Knox, Harrod and Romer, Arthur Lewis, Theodor Schultz, Robert Solow, A.K. Sen, Nussbaum, Paul Krugman, Simon Kuznets, A. Madison, Kindleberger, Colin Clark, Schumpeter, Cairncross and others. Can development be measured? Is an obvious question that anybody would ask. The answer is yes, but there cannot be one set of tools to measure development. The first set of measures pertain to income related measures. These are the most elementary measures. A higher national output means more goods for the citizens to consume. A higher real income of a nation increases the nation's capability to make greater welfare provisions for its people. Higher real per capita income means that people have greater monetary power with them. The second set of tools pertain to measures of inequality, which will be discussed in the later sections. The third set of measures pertain to measures of human development, which are mentioned as physical quality of life index, which is not used now, the human development index, the human poverty index 1, the human poverty index 2, the multidimensional poverty index, the gender related development index, the gender empowerment measure. All these measures will also be discussed in subsequent lectures. The fourth set pertains to measures of human capabilities and freedom. These measures are mentioned in various human development reports. Human development reports of various years from 1990 have defined human development over a wide range of perspectives as enlarging people's choices, creating an environment in which all people can expand their capabilities, expanding people's choices to lead a life which they value, to improve people's lives by expanding their choices and freedom and increasing their dignity, to improve human capabilities in terms of what they can do and what they can be, and expanding people's real choices and increasing their substantive freedoms. The indicators of choices, capabilities and freedom are long and healthy life, knowledge, resources for decent standard of living, political freedom, guaranteed human rights, self-respect, good physical environment, freedom of action and expression, human security, political, social and economic freedoms, being creative, being productive, democracy, dignity and respect towards others, empowerment, a sense of belongingness to a community, security, sustainability, political and civic freedom, cultural liberty, social and political participation, civil and political rights. The fifth set of measures pertain to policies and programs of the state which enable and empower people. Some policies which can enable citizens can be stated as: first, social security, pensions, health, insurance for all and so on. Second, adequate drinking water supply to all. Third, adoption of green technologies. Fourth, provision of all basic human rights like right to food, right to medical facilities, right to education, right to employment. Fifth, credit facilities for the poor people and small farmers, small businesses, etc. So, dear students, let us summarize what we have learnt in today's lecture. We have understood that countries of the world are classified based upon the level of their economic development. The scope of development economics is vast. It encompasses economic, social, cultural, political, policy and administrative areas. Development economics is dynamic, evolving, suggestive and normative, and there are income and non-income measures of development. Dear students, from this lecture we may remember that countries of the world were classified as first world countries, second world countries, third world countries and fourth world countries based upon the level of economic growth and development. World Development Report classifies countries as low income economies, lower middle income economies, upper middle income economies and high income economies. The measures of economic development pertain to income measures, measures of inequality, measures of human development, measures of human capability and measures of policy action.